The bicycle glided quietly to a stop in front of the peaceful apartment complex in Qinhuangdao. The silhouette of a woman in a red outfit stood out under the hallway lights, her slender hands completely covered in wool gloves despite the warming March weather. The mask concealed almost her entire face, revealing only cold, vigilant eyes scanning the surroundings. In her bicycle basket, a bunch of fresh celery swayed with each step, a seemingly harmless detail that would become an important piece in the horrifying crime about to unfold. On the night of March 27th, 2012, an emergency phone call rang at the harbor branch of Qinhuangdao City Police Department. A panicked voice of a man named Wang echoed through the receiver. "My wife! My wife has been murdered!" In an instant, the police team sped off, tearing through the quiet night toward the crime scene. The apartment building appeared in the red and blue lights of the police cars. The 925-square-foot, two-bedroom apartment was immersed in a deadly atmosphere. Jiang, a 32-year-old woman with a bright smile in the wedding photo hanging on the wall, now lay motionless in a widening pool of blood. 30 wounds covered her body, telling the story of her final, desperate struggle. The deep cut on her throat, a cruel end to a life cut short. Jiang Qian's shoulder bag lay carelessly thrown on the floor near the threshold, next to a dark red pool of blood that had begun to congeal. Bloodstains spread like a tragic map, extending from the main door to the bedroom balcony, narrating the story of a desperate escape. Wang, with a face still numb from shock, mumbled to the police, "Nothing was stolen. Nothing was touched." The apartment remained strangely neat, as if murder was the perpetrator's only goal. The lock was intact without a scratch, not a typical break-in. The doormat caught in the door crack was a silent confession of the killer's hasty departure. This wasn't an impulsive act, but a meticulously crafted script, executed with frightening coldness. Each piece was gradually assembled by the police. The killer had lurked in the dark hallway, waiting patiently. The moment Jiang Qian opened her door, she was attacked from behind. The knife unexpectedly plunged into her back, causing the victim to drop her bag and desperately run toward the bedroom in excruciating pain. Perhaps her last hope was to open the window and scream for help from the neighbors. Blood splatters on the walls and furniture told the story of a prolonged life-and-death struggle. Bloody handprints on the bedroom door, on the walls, on the bed sheets. But as Jiang Qian's strength gradually drained away and wounds accumulated, the killer found the fatal moment, stabbing her in a vulnerable spot. Although the scene was chaotic with evidence of a fierce struggle, forensic experts couldn't find a single fingerprint from the perpetrator, as if the culprit had turned into a ghost. Only a few tiny fat fibers remained, easily overlooked without magnification. After hours of careful analysis, forensic experts concluded that these fibers likely came from gloves. This suggested that the perpetrator hadn't just attacked impulsively, but had prepared carefully and had knowledge about eliminating evidence. But no matter how cautious, traces are always left behind. At the bedroom doorway, a faint footprint in the dried blood, not belonging to the victim or anyone in the family. A flat-soled, slender footprint, exactly 9.6 inches long, size 8, with an especially narrow heel. Not the style of footwear typically worn by men. Experts quickly estimated the killer was about 5 feet 3 inches tall. This, along with the scratches and signs of resistance on the victim's body, painted a picture of an almost equal struggle. There were no signs that the victim had been completely overpowered by superior strength. The lead investigator frowned, flipping through the crime scene photos. "We're looking for a woman who planned this in great detail." At the time of Jiang Qian's murder, she had been married to Wang for just 6 months. This was Wang's second marriage, and Jiang Qian was the new wife in his life. A crime of passion, the first hypothesis police considered. But a thorough investigation into Wang's past quickly eliminated this possibility. His previous divorce had proceeded smoothly, without conflict. Jiang Qian had a stable job, an agreeable personality, and the couple wasn't involved in any financial disputes with outsiders. Each familiar motive for crime, love, money, hatred, was crossed off the list one by one. The case became increasingly mysterious, the perpetrator's purpose increasingly difficult to grasp. What would drive a woman to meticulously plan to end Jiang Qian's life? While the investigation team was feeling stuck, Wang suddenly provided information that changed the entire direction of the case. His voice trembled as he recalled, "There's something I haven't mentioned. 6 months before our wedding, her entire family, parents and older brother, disappeared without a trace." The investigation team's meeting room fell silent. A family of 3 adults completely vanished, without goodbyes, without clues. Even on the most important day of their daughter's life, Jiang Qian's parents didn't appear. The wedding photo on the investigation table now became more heartbreaking. A radiant bride, without parents beside her to give their blessing. The wedding took place in the gloomy atmosphere of absence, the seats reserved for the bride's family empty, like an omen for the tragedy to come. "We reported to the police," Wang continued, "but the case didn't progress. It was as if they had vanished from this world." The lead investigator stood up, walked to the whiteboard, and drew a line connecting the 2 events. The mysterious disappearance of the entire family and Jiang Qian's death. Too many coincidences to be random. The highest possibility, these weren't 2 separate incidents, but 2 links in the same chain of crimes. "If this hypothesis is correct," the inspector spoke up, breaking the heavy atmosphere, "then we're facing a much more horrifying scenario. Not an isolated murder, but a systematic massacre. The entire family has been targeted." The eyes of all investigators turned to the board full of arrows and hypotheses. If indeed the whole family was being hunted, the underlying motive must be much larger than a personal grudge against Jiang Qian. The scope of the investigation needed to be expanded, not just revolving around the victims' relationships, but the entire history and connections of the family. A strange detail began to emerge. Why did the perpetrator wait until 6 months after the family's disappearance to act against Jiang Qian? And more importantly, who could harbor hatred deep enough to want to completely erase a family? Therefore, a team of investigators was mobilized, focusing entirely on the mysterious disappearance of the 3 Jiang family members. They followed every clue, knocked on every neighbor's door, searched through old documents. Gradually, the picture of the victim's family emerged more clearly, but it only increased the mystery. Jiang Qian's parents weren't ordinary people. The couple had built a reputable traditional medicine clinic in Shanghai, Guan, accumulating considerable assets over decades of practice. Their asset list surprised the investigators: multiple street-front shops, valuable commercial apartments, rare collections of antiques and calligraphy. Jiang Qian and her brother followed their parents' profession. The brother also opened his own clinic and was equally successful. Notably, despite their wealth, the entire family lived modestly, without ostentation. They were respected locally, not just for their assets, but for their professional ethics. Investigators couldn't find any conflict large enough to lead to hatred. No land disputes, no debts, no past grudges. Even more puzzling, after all 3 people disappeared, all assets remained intact. Not a single valuable painting disappeared, not a penny withdrawn from accounts. The family home was strangely clean, with no signs of disturbance or fighting. If not for money, what did the perpetrator want? In the meeting room, the lead investigator posed the key question. Assuming the entire Jiang family has been harmed, who benefits the most? The answer gradually emerged, like a ghost in dim light. At that time, only one person had a blood relationship with the family, Jiang Qian's sister-in-law. According to inheritance law, the inspector analyzed, if all members of the Jiang family are gone, all assets would belong to the sister-in-law. A strong motive appeared, especially when the killer was likely female. Moreover, through interviews with the victim's friends, police discovered that Jiang Qian had repeatedly expressed suspicion that her sister-in-law was involved in the family's disappearance. However, the sister-in-law theory quickly shattered under the weight of new evidence. A thorough investigation revealed a surprising truth. She and Jiang Qian's brother had divorced 6 months earlier, coinciding with when the family began to disappear. Now, she lived the life of an ordinary woman with no signs of financial changes or lifestyle shifts. After months of surveillance, police detected no suspicious behavior. In particular, the sister-in-law had also expressed suspicion about the family's disappearance, even suggesting that Jiang Qian was involved. The relationship between the two women had deeply fractured, each blaming the other for the unfolding tragedy. When Jiang Qian was murdered, the sister-in-law was no less terrified. Her reaction was too natural to be fake. With the sister-in-law eliminated from the suspect list, the investigation hit another dead end. Every lead led to a dead end. Police were forced to return to the starting point, the murder scene, where they hoped to find details they had missed. While reviewing the scene notes, an officer suddenly remembered something. The strange smell at the scene. Does anyone remember? He recalled the feeling when first entering the apartment, a pungent, acrid smell filling the space. Wang, when asked again, confirmed their house never had such a smell. Based on this information, forensics found capsaicin on Jiang Qian's face. The lead investigator jumped up, eyes brightening. That wasn't ordinary pepper. The killer used pepper spray. The inspector pointed to the scene drawing. That's why the victim couldn't effectively resist. She was attacked from behind, then sprayed directly in the face, losing her ability to orient and defend herself. Notably, this type of spray wasn't readily available in local stores, but had to be ordered online. With strong support from online platforms, they quickly filtered through online shopping records for weapons in the area and finally identified an order. This woman had logged into a shopping website at an internet cafe in January, purchasing pepper spray and a knife. The identification registration at the internet cafe showed her name was Tian Na, and surveillance cameras also captured her image. Police quickly went to Tian Na's address, but the meeting only brought more mystery. The person standing before them wasn't the woman in the surveillance camera. My ID card was lost a few months ago, Tian Na explained, looking confused. I don't know who that woman is. I've never met her. The theft of identity to purchase murder weapons further confirmed the killer's careful calculation. Meanwhile, the surveillance camera investigation team detected a suspicious figure. Data showed Jiang Qian entered the apartment complex at 5:58 p.m. on the day of the murder. Through careful examination of each person appearing before and after this time, they noticed a woman wearing a distinctive red outfit. What was strange was that while many people had switched to lighter spring clothing with the warming weather, this woman was completely covered with a wool hat, mask, and gloves. When police expanded the scope of data retrieval from security cameras, they discovered something even more notable. The woman in red didn't just appear on the day of the murder, but was also recorded at exactly the time Jiang Qian left work the day before. Not just once, but twice consecutively. In and out, then in and out again. This repetitive behavior didn't resemble that of normal residents in the apartment complex. What caught the investigators' attention most was the detail about the celery bunch. In each appearance, whether entering or leaving the apartment complex, the woman in red always carried the same bunch of celery in her bicycle basket. This detail completely contradicted normal logic. Who buys vegetables, brings them home, then takes them out again, and brings them back in? This isn't someone shopping, the lead investigator determined. This is someone scouting, and the celery bunch is just a prop to create a cover. The bright red outfit, combined with the celery bunch, created the image of an ordinary woman returning from shopping, a perfect disguise to avoid attention. But in the eyes of experienced investigators, the mechanical repetition was the weakness of this disguise. No one carries the same bunch of vegetables back and forth like that. The woman in red was clearly studying Jiang Qian's schedule, learning when she returned home, observing the entrances and exits, and carefully preparing for the attack plan. This wasn't an impulsive action, but an assassination meticulously planned, stalking the victim many days before taking action. Although the woman in red tried to conceal her identity with layers of clothing, mask, and wool hat, she couldn't completely hide herself. Behavioral analysis experts watched and rewatched each frame of camera footage, paying attention to the smallest details. Height, slender build, and especially the characteristic way of walking, light but decisive steps. After hours of meticulous comparison, they reached a definite conclusion. The woman in red scouting the apartment complex and the person using fake documents to purchase weapons at the internet cafe were the same person. Physical evidence further strengthened this hypothesis. She wore flat-soled shoes, with size and shape perfectly matching the footprint obtained at the scene. The wool gloves were of the same type as the distinctive fat fibers discovered by the forensic team. Every detail fit like pieces in a puzzle of crime. Police immediately deployed teams to monitor security cameras throughout the area, hoping to find where this mysterious woman lived. But no matter how advanced the technology, the surveillance camera system still had too many blind spots. The woman in red was like a shadow, appearing at one camera angle, then disappearing into an unmonitored zone. Sometimes they thought they had caught a trace, only to lose it at the next intersection. After many days of exhausting tracking, the search again hit a dead end. Faced with the impasse in tracking the woman in red, police shifted their investigation, turning back to examine details of the online shopping order. An important piece of information stood out. The goods weren't sent to Qinhuangdao as expected, but to an address in Beijing. The recipient wasn't Tian Na, but a man named Liu Nan. This name startled the investigators. Liu Nan wasn't a stranger. He was a close friend of Zhang Qian's missing brother. In the early stage of the investigation, police had considered him as part of the victim's social network, but found no motive or suspicious evidence, so had eliminated him. Now, with this new information, Liu Nan became the focus of the investigation. Investigators secretly monitored his every movement, and new discoveries made them increasingly suspicious. Security cameras captured images of Liu Nan's car parked right in front of Zhang Qian's workplace on the day of the murder. He didn't go inside, just sat silently in the car, observing as Zhang Qian left the office, clearly the behavior of someone following her. More notably, after the murder occurred, Liu Nan suddenly requested leave, lying to colleagues that he wanted to go to Tianjin. But data from toll stations and traffic cameras showed he actually went to Beijing, exactly where the address for the pepper spray was. This secret journey, combined with the lie about his destination, increased suspicion that he had gone to Beijing to erase traces related to the weapon purchase. This chain of events couldn't be coincidental. Liu Nan was certainly involved in the case, possibly as an intermediary or accomplice. Police immediately deployed a special surveillance team, secretly monitoring Liu Nan's every move. The surveillance of Liu Nan quickly yielded results. Just 1 week after the murder, on April 3, 2012, Liu Nan again requested leave from work. This time, he claimed he wanted to take a relative to Tianjin for medical treatment, but the GPS secretly attached to his car drew a completely different route. He once again went to Beijing. In Beijing, Liu Nan didn't contact anyone as expected. Instead, he went to a bathhouse, stayed overnight, had a normal massage, and returned to Qinhuangdao the next morning. This strange journey increased the investigators' curiosity. Who would travel over 370 miles just for a massage? Who would lie about the purpose of a trip so unreasonably? Clearly, Liu Nan was performing another mission, possibly checking if he was being followed or passing information through some secret channel. Police tightened the surveillance, following his every step. 3 days later, Liu Nan moved again, but this time not to Beijing. His car headed north to Chaoyang City, Liaoning Province. The surveillance team followed closely, noting that Liu Nan stopped at a small, discreet restaurant in the suburbs. After sitting alone for about 20 minutes, he went outside and met 2 people, 1 man and 1 woman. The investigators' hearts beat faster when they recognized the woman in the group. Police quickly realized it was the same mysterious woman who had bought the pepper spray and was also the red shadow in the apartment complex surveillance cameras. The 2 main targets of the investigation had finally converged at a remote, secluded location. There was no doubt anymore. Liu Nan and the mysterious woman were definitely accomplices in the murder. But who was the remaining person? And why were they meeting in Chaoyang, hundreds of miles from Qinhuangdao? After hours of tracking this trio, police identified their hideout. A special forces team was deployed, silently surrounding the building. At the decisive moment, they stormed in simultaneously, apprehending all 3 people before they could react. "What's your name? Tell me your name!" The police officer's shout echoed in the chaotic room. The mysterious woman who had been hiding behind the red outfit and celery bunch finally revealed her true identity. Her name was Jiang Rong, 36 years old, from Ningbo, Zhejiang province. She quickly confessed, "I killed Zhang Qian." She recounted the entire process of committing the crime. In January 2012, using Tianna's forged documents, she had purchased pepper spray and a sharp knife online. Then, on the evening of March 27th, Rong had followed Zhang Qian all the way home, attacked her unexpectedly from behind, and ruthlessly ended her life. Rong's confession matched every detail at the scene: the blood at the door, signs of struggle in the bedroom, the use of pepper spray, and the exact number of stabs. But when asked about her motive, her answer was truly shocking. However, Wang, the victim's husband, insisted that he and his wife didn't know Rong at all. No enmity, no conflict, no connection whatsoever. Rong also confirmed this. She and Zhang Qian had never met, had no grudges. "I did this for love," Rong said, her eyes lighting up with frightening passion. "For the man I love. I was willing to do anything for him, including killing someone I didn't know." When the third man arrested with Liu Nan and Rong was brought into the interrogation room, the entire investigation team was stunned. Nobody could have imagined it. Sitting before them wasn't a stranger, but Jiang Ziqiang, the victim's brother, who had been mysteriously missing with his parents for the past 6 months. "Impossible," the lead investigator whispered, staring at the familiar face from the family photo Wang had provided. For the past 6 months, while everyone believed he was dead, Ziqiang had actually been living peacefully in Chaoyang with Rong, his new lover. And now, along with this, a horrifying truth was revealed. The brother himself had directed the murder of his own sister. Rong's story gradually revealed a tragedy even more terrifying than the murder. Previously, she had been a woman with a normal life, a stable career in Ningbo, a loving husband, and a child. But everything changed in 2009 when she accidentally met Ziqiang online. Initially just normal conversations, but Ziqiang, with his eloquent speech, extensive knowledge of traditional medicine and Eastern philosophy, quickly captured Rong's mind completely. Each day, she became more infatuated with this mysterious man, to the point of obsession. Nothing could stop her, even knowing he was married, or even that he had a disability in his leg. "I had never met anyone like him," Rong confessed in her statement. "He understood me better than I understood myself. When talking to him, I felt my previous life was completely meaningless." After a year of online communication, Jiang Ziqiang finally accepted Rong's feelings, but with conditions. To prove her love, she had to do 3 things: quit her job, divorce her husband, and cut all ties with her family. These were cruel demands, but in her love-crazed state, Rong agreed without hesitation. Within less than a month in 2011, she had completely disappeared from her old life, abandoning her stable job, divorcing her husband, even abandoning her child. None of her friends or family could understand this sudden decision. No one knew she had been drawn into a toxic relationship, an obsessive love that would lead to tragedy. After meeting all the conditions, Rong left Ningbo for Qinhuangdao to live with Ziqiang. Ziqiang also kept his promise, divorcing his wife. After giving up everything to be with Ziqiang, Rong quickly discovered not everything was as dreamed. The man she worshipped seemed always haunted by deep anxiety. Night after night, he tossed and turned, sighing, tormented by nameless nightmares. During the day, he often fell into a pensive state, his eyes gazing distantly into space. Rong tried to understand, patiently asking, "Is there something worrying you that I can help with?" she earnestly asked, time and again. After periods of silence, Ziqiang finally opened up. He looked straight into Rong's eyes, His voice choked. You can't help. If you help me, you'll die too. I told her that after helping me, she might die very quickly, Jiang later testified to police, without a trace of remorse in his voice. But instead of fear, this warning only increased Rong's determination. I'm ready for you, she replied, tears in her eyes. Help you do anything. That's when Jiang Ziqiang revealed his frightening plan. He had an enemy who needed to be eliminated, Jiang Qian, his own biological sister. His friend Liu Nan would provide logistical support, but the person to directly take action had to be Rong. Any normal person would shudder at such a horrifying request. But Rong wasn't normal. She had been swept into the whirlwind of an obsessive love, to the point of losing all reason. Without a moment's hesitation, without a question about the reason, she nodded in agreement. If that's what you want, she simply replied. From that moment, the trio began meticulously planning the murder. Why did you kill your own sister? This question confused everyone even more, considering the relationship between the siblings. According to neighbors and friends, Jiang Ziqiang and Jiang Qian had an exceptionally close bond, 4 years apart, but with a sibling affection rarely seen. From an early age, Jiang Ziqiang had suffered from a disease that caused his left leg to develop abnormally. During those difficult years, it was Jiang Qian who always stayed by his side, caring for her brother, helping him overcome his insecurities. She even defended him against ridicule and teasing from others. When she grew up and looked for a partner, Jiang Qian set one non-negotiable condition. That person must accept and respect her brother, not discriminate against his disability. What made it harder to believe was that his evil behavior didn't stop at killing Jiang Qian, but extended to his own parents, nearly destroying his entire family. Your parents are dead. How did they die? I buried my parents' bodies in the house's storage room, poured cement over the ground, created a fake scene that I and my parents were missing, then left Qinhuangdao with Rong. In the cold interrogation room, Jiang Ziqiang began to tell of the deep hatred he had harbored for many years. Since I was very young, Jiang Ziqiang began, I lived with physical and mental pain. My left leg didn't develop normally. Every step was an effort. But even more painful than this leg were the looks. Pitying, contemptuous, mocking looks from everyone around. Jiang Ziqiang's childhood years were a series of dark days. Because of his health condition, he had to start school 3 or 4 years later than children his age. In class, he was always the biggest, clumsiest kid and an easy target for malicious jokes. I begged my parents to find a way to treat me, he continued. Every night, I dreamed of walking normally like other children. I believed my parents, as medical practitioners, could do that. But they couldn't. Despite enduring these difficulties, Ziqiang still demonstrated exceptional academic talent. But then, after graduating from middle school, his father made a decision that changed his life. His son must drop out of school and follow him into the medical profession. My father was an authoritarian, Ziqiang recalled, his eyes darkening. He said what he said, and that was final. No one in the family dared contradict him. He said that with my leg, even with a university education, it would be difficult to take care of myself. That teaching me medicine was for my future. In the father's eyes, it was the right decision, stemming from genuine love and concern. He wanted his son to have a stable profession, a skill that could support himself without requiring much movement. But for the ambitious teenager, it was a devastating shock. From that moment, a twisted seed of hatred gradually sprouted in Ziqiang's soul. Afterward, he reluctantly learned medicine under his father, eventually opened his own clinic, married and had children, all according to his parents' arrangements. On the surface, he had a stable life, but it wasn't the life he wanted, always harboring resentment toward his parents, though he didn't show it much. Then one day, by chance through the internet, he met Rong, a woman who made him feel understood for the first time in his life. Unlike his family, Rong didn't set requirements, didn't impose, only had unconditional admiration and worship. Rong believed he was intelligent, talented, deserving of a better life. For the first time, I felt someone truly understood me, Jiang Ziqiang said. She didn't see me as a disabled person needing pity, but saw my real value. Through months of conversation, the two decided to abandon their current families to be together. For Jiang Ziqiang, this wasn't just a new romance, but an opportunity to escape his parents' control, to live the life he had always yearned for. I went to see my parents, clearly stating my decision, he recounted, his voice lowering. I would leave everything, the clinic, wife, child, to start over with Rong. But I worried about my wife and child when I left. How would they live? So, I asked my parents to give them a portion of assets, enough to stabilize their lives. But the parents once again refused to meet their son's wishes. They wouldn't provide financial support for the soon-to-be abandoned wife and grandchild, considering it their son's irresponsible behavior. That's when everything exploded inside me, Jiang Ziqiang confessed, his eyes distant. Anger, hatred, bitterness, all had accumulated in me for so many years, and then I couldn't control myself anymore. In a rage accumulated over many years, he did the unthinkable. Killed his own parents. Afterward, he buried the bodies in the storehouse, poured concrete over them, created a false phenomenon about the family's sudden disappearance, then fled with Rong. In Jiang Ziqiang's original plan, his sister Jiang Qian would stay behind, manage the family assets, and care for his wife and child. He still believed in the sibling relationship, in the devotion of a sister who had cared for him for many years. But through acquaintances, he learned that over the past 6 months, his ex-wife and son had been living very difficultly. Jiang Qian hadn't supported them as he expected. This angered him, seeing it as a betrayal. I trusted my sister, Jiang Ziqiang said, bitterness evident in his voice. I thought she would take care of my wife and child, but she failed to fulfill her responsibility. From betrayed trust, he decided that Jiang Qian must also die, the sister who had once loved and protected him for so many years. Shielded by a false identity as someone who had disappeared, Jiang Ziqiang constructed a cruel plan. He didn't directly appear but controlled everything from a distance, like a director of a bloody play. Every detail was meticulously calculated. Rong, under Ziqiang's direction, impersonated someone else to buy pepper spray and a knife from the internet. Liu Nan, Ziqiang's loyal friend, received the goods in Beijing to avoid leaving traces. The two coordinated to scout Jiang Qian's schedule, study the apartment complex, learn when she usually returned home. I couldn't appear, Jiang Ziqiang explained in his statement. Everyone thought I was missing. If someone saw me, the plan would be ruined. Therefore, the responsibility for the most cruel act, taking Jiang Qian's life, was assigned to Rong. A woman blinded by love, who didn't know the victim, had no personal grudge, became the tool to kill an innocent person. The combination of the twisted hatred in Jiang Ziqiang's heart, Rong's blind submission, and Liu Nan's lack of moral discernment created this inhumane tragedy. After many days of trial, with irrefutable evidence and the defendant's confessions, the court delivered its verdict. Jiang Ziqiang and Jiang Rong were sentenced to death. Liu Nan, the accomplice, was sentenced to a fixed prison term. Today's case leaves us with valuable lessons about humanity and life. Hatred, when nurtured over time, becomes an uncontrollable monster. Jiang Ziqiang allowed his resentment from childhood to grow over the years, eventually leading to cruel actions against his own family. Heal the wounds of your soul before they turn into poison. Listen to and understand your loved ones, and never let emotions, whether family love or romantic love, become an excuse for cruel behavior. And that is today's case. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next videos.